Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the newest episode of Total Mathematics Forever, a podcast where we discuss numbers, equations, formulas, everything mathematical. You'll find it here. And today, we have a doozy for you. We'll be discussing a personal favorite of mine, the classic quadratic equation. Now, we all know the general equation is ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. And we all know how to use that. We all know how to apply it to our everyday lives. But we're going to go a little deeper. We're going to discuss the historical development of the quadratic equation, which is something we might say in an alternate dimension where we're a couple of fucking nerds, no friends. This is Total Entertainment Forever, episode 5. I'm Andrew. My co-host is
Hey, this is Nick. We went with the math bit, huh? That's great.
It's very good.
I'll make sure to veto all future math bits in the future.
Speaking of alternate dimensions, today we're talking about Spider-Man.
Into the Spider-Verse. Yeah, baby. We're talking about Spider-Verse, which is something that's definitely not nerdy. It's just really cool.
It's for everyone.
It's for everyone. It's for all ages.
Comics are mainstream now.
Comics are mainstream, so really, like, we could be a couple jocks talking about comics, which is what we are.
Absolutely, powerhouses.
Absolutely, but besides, hey, I know you got math in the mind.
We're the Flash Thompson to the world's Peter Parker.
Yeah, but like the Spider-Man Sam Raimi Flash Thompson, where he's like a large Italian man, and not like the new Flash Thompson, who's like also a kind of a nerd, but like a rich, smarmy nerd.
That's the worst kind.
Yeah,
Ugh.
it's pretty.
That's
it's
worse
pretty
somehow.
Yeah, remember in Homecoming where Flash Thompson's like an Indian guy that's on the debate team? He's played by the Grand Budapest Hotel guy.
I don't remember that.
No, like, like the main character. Yeah, he plays Flash Thompson. It's a strange.
Okay, so we're OG Flash Thompson.
Yeah, no,
okay,
we're OG
good.
Flash Thompson. We're putting nerds in lockers, man. It's happening.
Long.
Anyway, how you doing, Andrew?
Oh boy. I don't want to talk about it. Okay. I want to talk about Spider-Verse.
I don't really want to talk about how I'm doing either. So we're on the same page here, man.
We hope all of you are doing well. We hope you enjoyed your spring break, or have you not had it yet? We hope you will enjoy it when it comes.
Yeah.
More than we enjoyed ours.
Oh boy. But we could have been recording this in Clearwater. We didn't. I was hanging out in Clearwater for a while. You visited, but we were both too tired and too miserable to record there. So we decided to give it a week, and now we're back. And a few things have happened in that time. For one, something I did want to just mention, just because it makes me a little happy. The absolute boy, James Gunn, he's back. He's back, baby. He's doing Guardians 3, and I like to think that we had a little something to do with it.
Absolutely. Disney heard us on this podcast.
Uh-huh.
They heard all of our loyal friends listening at home.
Yeah.
And they decided to take them back on board.
Well, I worked at Disney a few years ago, so I obviously knew Bob Iger personally. I sent him one of our pods. He gave it a listen, and he was like, you know what? These boys have a point. We shouldn't fire people for arbitrary things that we already were aware of.
Right, and James, we know you're listening too. We will accept your thanks in the form of an appearance on our podcast and also a bit role in either the Suicide Squad or Guardians 3.
Or just a lump sum payment. It doesn't matter to me.
I want the Guardians role.
You know what?
The residuals, brother.
Fair enough. You're right. Those action figure payments. I'm sure some people are still living off of those.
My physique is often compared to that of Dave Bautista. So should he need like a stunt double or something, I'm here. I've also my wit and charm often compared to that of Chris Pratt. So stunt double there. Or just flat out replacement.
I'm
sure you have my number.
Boy, you are really You were leaning on the self-fellatio
Well,
tonight.
nobody. It's a podcast. They can't see me. They don't know.
They can hear it. I can see
fuck.
it in here.
It's fine.
But he's working for both. I've never seen that ever happen before. Have you? Like
not at the same
play
time.
for both. Yeah,
no,
I mean,
Joss Whedon did Avengers, and then
Justice League, right? Which was, well, we all know how that went.
Who was
terrifically
the actor in who was originally in the X-Men and then took a DC job, so they killed him.
Okay. You're thinking of James Marsden. James Marsden.
Cyclops, right?
Yeah, who was the Cyclops in the X-Men films, and was basically written out of X3 because he followed the original director of the first two X-Men films, front of the show, Bryan Singer, into Superman Returns, where he played a bit role. Literally just a guy that got cucked by Superman. That's his role in Superman Returns. I don't know why he decided to do this one instead of Cyclops. And then, because of that, Cyclops is in X3 for about 5 minutes before being murdered. Not that the character was that developed to begin with in those movies, but still very weird to see in a movie that's already filled with confusing things. But yeah, playing for both teams at once, I gotta say, that's a Chad move on James Gunn's part. And I'm very excited to see what he does with the Suicide Squad reboots. I'm sure he can't top the original, but he can try.
The only time I saw the original was when we saw it together in the movie theater, and we were both tripping on edibles for the first time.
We were.
So most of it is just like a blur.
Literally, when we both saw it, like every scene that happened was like I might as well have been its own movie, because I forgot the previous scene by the time the next scene was happening.
Like fading in and out.
It was just neon lights. It was Jared Leto acting like Ace Ventura. It was a very confusing film. I did not understand it whatsoever.
Essentially. It was a hoot, though.
Yes, it was. Yeah. It wasn't as big of a hoot when I saw it the second time.
I don't know why you did that to yourself. Should have said what I did. I just went with the fond memories.
I was with a lady.
Oh.
Yeah.
Any lady who would go see Suicide Squad with you, maybe not worth the second date.
Hey, you're acting like I'm a man with standards. No, I'm not. I almost tried to defend myself for a second. My bad. Anyway, we're not here to talk about Suicide Squad, though, or the Suicide Squad, or Guardians of the Galaxy, for that matter. Although we might talk about the Marvel films, the MCU films, a little bit. We might bring that up in comparison with the film we're about to talk about today, which is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. And I have a feeling that I'm going to make a lot of unfavorable comparisons to unfavorable comparisons of the MCU to this movie, because to me it really kind of heightens the superhero movie art form in a way that the MCU movies have not reached yet.
Right, and we'll get into that, but we need to
Sure, let's just get into the film at first, though.
All right. So, first thing you notice about this movie, first thing I noticed back when I was just the trailers, was the animation, which I hated from the trailers. I thought I was gonna hate the movie.
I was a little put off by it at first from the trailers too. I was hopeful because of the talent behind it. You know, it was Phil Lord. It was a few other people, but mostly I was into the Lord and Miller connection. I've been a fan of their work in the past, like many others have also been. But yeah, the animation was a little confusing. The frame rate, which is something everyone mentions, was a little jarring to watch in trailer form. But to me, once I saw the movie, I got used to it very quickly. And in fact, was actually very impressed with. To me, this is one of the most unique looking animated films that come out in some time. Perhaps the most unique, the most revolutionary looking, I would dare say, animated film since Toy Story. Because I can't think of a movie since Toy Story that really gave us this kind of look, this kind of exciting, just new take on animation. I don't know. Can you think of anything? Obviously, there's been plenty of good animated movies. There's been plenty of good-looking animated movies. There's been plenty of CGI animated films that sort of worked off of the Toy Story mold and perhaps improved on it, with textures and whatnot. But nothing has really packed that punch, really, since Toy Story, in my opinion, look-wise.
I agree.
Yeah. Except for this. and it's such a cool amalgamation of different aesthetics. It's obviously very comic booky, very inspired by Jack Kirby. You can see like the cell shading almost if you look close enough. Every time
they make use of panels
exactly.
Too,
They look sometimes you'll see
hasn't been done since Ang Lee's the Hulk.
No, well,
which we should talk about later.
Ang Lee's the Hulk is underrated, and to me is a very strange film that unfortunately probably will never be able to be made again. But yeah, no, Ang Lee's the Hulk was one of the first films, to my knowledge, that really utilized a comic book aesthetic, which is strange because that movie's basically just an art film about like trauma,
family drama.
It's about family trauma, and it's told like a comic book for some reason to me. So it's a weird like dichotomy there. But the Spider-Man, to me, thematically, it works perhaps a little bit better, and of course takes it a lot farther. Throughout the film, you'll see a lot of like split-second shots of like hand-drawn animation as well, kind of sprinkled throughout a lot of the action scenes. You'll see a lot of just small, like the attention to detail in this film is immaculate.
Right, especially during the scenes with the machine, that fuses the dimensions, and they really lay it in heavy there.
They do, yeah. I saw one of the reviews. I forget who compared the ending of the film to the ending of 2001: A Space Odyssey. I don't know if I quite go that far, but I could see where they're coming from because it's a very boldly colorful ending that has no real grip on tangible reality. It's superhero action, but it's like a weird interdimensional like foray that's happening, and it's really strange. It looks awesome, especially in 3D. When I saw this in 3D the first time, it blew my mind.
My first 3D movie, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
Because you were with me and one of our associates.
Yeah.
And that's your first 3D. I'm surprised.
No,
Jesus
Christ.
Great
first choice.
I honestly, the 3D was pretty good.
Yeah.
And sometimes a lot of these kinds of movies, especially when 3D was first like making its big comeback around a decade ago. Like a lot of movies just were released in 3D, and the 3D was terrible.
Mm-hmm.
But this one definitely made use of it very well from the very first shot. Frankly, when like the logos pop up and it's glitchy, and it starts like the logos start morphing into different different styles, and like it's a very bold way of introducing the film. It's like I don't even know how to describe it. It's like a roller coaster from the very beginning, and I'm just a big fan of the look of this film, and I think it delivers on that. If you don't like anything else about it, it's very difficult to deny that a lot of work was put into the look of this film.
Yeah, just a really good visual experience. It is really hard to describe. It's really something you need to see for yourself.
Yeah, because it's a mixture.
So much going on.
It's pop art.
Yeah.
Because it's a mixture of so many different things. Because they have, like I said, the comic book stuff. They have, but once the other characters from the other dimensions are introduced, then you have the idea of different types of animation also being added. Because we have Spider-Man Noir being black and white. We have obviously the Peter Porker being a kind of a classic Looney Tunes-esque cartoon, and they managed to make these and obviously what's her name, Penny Parker, the anime gal. And like they somehow managed to make all this work. Like it's all very distinct, and and it's all its own thing, but they all managed to kind of fit in the right space and have it not feel like out of place, which I think is an amazing feat in its own right. But even besides the look, to me the movie works. And let me just say that this movie was my favorite film probably of last year. Although I've never really, I haven't really like run down like a list or anything. I also have not seen as many films last year as I have in previous years. I was kind of I was being a little lazy, I'll say. And also MoviePass was gone, so
again
that really
rip MoviePass.
Yes, because
we cannot emphasize
that really
this
killed my momentum, because it's not like I have the disposable income to be watching these to be watching movies every week. That's why MoviePass was so awesome. Oh man, I miss it. Gotta tell you. But even besides the look of the film, I think it works.
Let's not move past the look though. I want to put a little.
Okay, yeah, go on.
Talk a little
ahead.
bit about the character design.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
A couple of big points. Number one, you talked about Peter Porker before.
Peter Porker, the amazing Spider-Man.
We're talking about like the minutia of what they got into here. The way like his nostrils on his nose moved like eyes.
Yeah.
Then you had one of my favorite animated characters as far as design ever, that being the Kingpin here,
oh, God,
who is an absolute unit, just rotund,
he's just hulking,
monolith of a body, and then like as an afterthought, they attached this tiny little head like in the middle of his fucking chest.
It's an interesting design. I don't think
chuckled in the middle of the theater, like when he first popped out.
It's hard to accept him. And then once you do, it's like, wow, this guy's awesome. Because he's such a cool design. I don't think I've ever seen a character design like that before, where it's literally like this like mountain of a person with this tiny head in the middle. It's insane, and it's great. It's terrific. It works. It just works. But even besides the look, I think it really I think the movie is a success in every other feat too. The casting of the characters, I think, are very intentional. They're very well done. The casting of Miles Morales, it's the guy from Dope. I forget his name. He's really good. And his performance, you buy it, and it's no small feat to have to be able to accept Miles Morales in addition to all the like many other things that are going on in this film, and they managed to do it, and it's no small part because of his performance. But I do want to mention that some of the other good casting choices, I think they really do work well with the personas of the actors.
Like Jake Johnson as Slacker Spider-Man.
Slacker Spider-Man, Jake Johnson's really good. He's basically playing Nick Miller from New Girl, but as Spider-Man, and it works. It works amazingly. He has his own arc, and it's terrific. Plus, we have Nicolas Cage as Spider-Man Noir. All right, famous demented comic book fan Nicolas Cage. Doing his thing. I don't know what his
like Humphrey Bogart-esque
exactly.
Voice.
His voice is very strange, and he's clearly like leaning into the old timey thing, which is also what he did with Kick-Ass. Kinda, he was doing his Adam West Batman impression.
That dog movie I was telling you about. Yeah. That horrible film I would never recommend to anybody. Like that's one of the points to the film is people constantly bringing up how he sounds like Humphrey Bogart. Or
I'm sure
he makes it a point himself to tell everyone how he sounds like Humphrey Bogart.
That probably wasn't in the script. That
was improv.
Oh no, he probably because he loves that stuff. He's a big fan. Last year was a good year for Nick, though. I'll say that. With that and Mandy, which we might talk about in the future.
Yeah, I'm hoping he made enough money from all these films that he can like pay off all of his castles and
the various castles that Nicolas Cage has bought. Yeah,
finally be able to say no to some films at some point.
Yeah, I mean he's like buying castles. He's buying like limited edition comic books that are like thousands of dollars. And he probably does. He have a family? I hope he doesn't for their sake.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he would not be feeding them. He would just be feeding them. He would just be feeding them limited edition comic books, and as we all know, not very nutritious meals. But in addition to that, John Mulaney as the Pig Man, very good as well. He's a cartoonish guy.
Well, let's get one thing straight.
Voice.
He was never a man.
Okay,
he was
you're
a
right.
spider.
He's a
then turned into a pig.
No, okay, yes, he was a spider that was bitten by a radioactive pig, which is a interesting mix-up of the origins that they added for him. I think that's from the comics, though. I don't know much about Peter Porker from the comics. I just know that he existed. I've been very aware of him for a very long time, and I was wondering when they're going to add him to a movie. And now they did. It's shocking. We really live in a strange world where this kind of thing is happening.
Yeah, they really plumbed the depth of Spider-Man
exactly.
Because
you think about when Spider-Man first came on the silver screen, 2002. Sam Raimi, his first film, a movie that has a very special place in my heart. I think it's a very well-made movie. I think Spider-Man 2 is better, but I think those two are really well-made and emotional films that work on most levels. But you never thought for a second that you would be watching this kind of weird comic book stuff happen on screen. You wouldn't think that you would be watching Peter Porker be on the silver screen. And this was even before the existence of Miles Morales or Spider-Gwen or any of these other new and beloved characters. And you never thought that, and to briefly harken back to the MCU, you never thought that you would see Spider-Man hang out with the Avengers. I always thought, oh, maybe someday, but I always thought, probably not. And that is one thing the MCU has managed to do, is kind of put forth more comic booky stuff to the silver screen, for better or worse. And I feel like this movie runs with that, what they did with that, making people more comfortable with some of the weirder, out there stuff when it comes to comic book fiction, and kind of distilling it for mainstream audiences. And this film does that, but manages to do it in a way that I feel just works a little bit better. And you know what? Since we're on the subject, let me. I just want to kind of get into why I think this the MCU can kind of learn from this film a little bit, because I do like the MCU. I do. However, and you can, by the way, you can.
Oh no, I'll go in.
Yeah. You can go in when you want, man. Because this is something I could talk about for a very long time, as you know. But a lot of their films, they don't really. How do I put this? They don't really try to kind of put
differentiate.
Like a lot, and I understand why that's the case in some, because you kind of want the sort of you want people to buy that it's all in the same universe, and I get that. However, I feel like you can do that while having these films have their own director's stamp. I mean, I feel like there's no reason to kind of dilute a director's vision when it comes to these films, and it's very clear that that's what's been happening.
Right, yeah. So for the longest time, there were no auteurs here. It was very flat. It was seemingly very formulaic.
And with a few, I would say with a few minor...
up until Guardians.
Yeah.
I would argue that it was... they just followed the tone set by Iron Man, and then later the tone set by Joss Whedon when he did the Avengers. Of this very slick cinematography, but just very flat and I don't know, mostly serious, but interspersed with like the occasional banter for like a
and I feel like the Joss Whedon thing, they're still kind of running with that too, is because it's very heavy banter. The action scenes are slick. There's usually banter sprinkled in as well. There's good character work usually throughout. I think that's their strongest point, is their characters. I just think that with a movie like, say, well, I just saw Captain Marvel, and I thought it was enjoyable, and I liked it, but I couldn't help but imagine what it would be like if they let the director really go all in with the sort of, I don't know, maybe with the 90s aesthetic or something, which is there, but it's sort of there kind of in the background while it's in the service of a plot that is, pretty standard for superhero fiction.
Right. So that's my main complaint, is that all of these films are superhero movies. Like, that's become a genre.
Exactly.
Versus,
now
like a movie with superheroes in it.
They have their own cliches and trappings now.
Yeah.
And I feel like even when MCU films rather have their, like, oh, it's kind of this genre, like it's only kind of that genre, but then it's
just like a hint. It's like a
exactly.
LaCroix of that genre.
It's like a LaCroix version of that genre. Like people say, Winter Soldier is like a 70s spy thriller, and it is. In many ways, it's more grounded than some of them, and there's a lot of like intense action. There's a lot of espionage. Robert Redford's in it. However, by the end of the film, you're still falling into the trappings of the genre. There's still like the big boss battle. There's still like the Whedon banter, and it kind of falls into that, even while differentiating itself somewhat. I would be very interested in seeing a Marvel film that really dug its heels in whatever genre they were trying to do, and
just happened to feature a Marvel
exactly
character.
And there's plenty of comic books have already nailed this. There's plenty of comic books that have like different styles, different types of stories. Plenty of artists have different visions of what the character looks like. Plenty of writers have different visions of what the characters are, and that's one of the main appeals of comic books, I think, because you can have something like, I don't know, like Garth Ennis' Punisher. And you can have
That's
that
Warzone, right?
Exact
punching through people's faces.
Exactly. Well, not quite. Warzone is basically that mixed with Batman and Robin.
Gotcha.
But you can have Darwin Cook's Hawkeye, which is like a real stay-at-home type of story. And then it's all like this stuff is like completely different.
Right? Yeah, this has worked historically.
Exactly.
Like dating back, you had Tim Burton's Batman's.
Yeah, going back to the movies, yes. Tim Burton's Batman's. Good point.
We referenced earlier Ang Lee's The Hulk.
Yeah, and
which is like you said, it's an art film, and the Hulk just happens to make an appearance.
And this was back when people didn't really know what to do with superhero films. There was no mold. Now we have an MCU mold, and either people are working off that mold, or in the case of like Zack Snyder's Man of Steel, they're trying to reject that mold entirely. But back with the Tim Burton Batman movies, this was clearly just a man. Like, they didn't give a shit about being like comically accurate or anything. They just gave Tim Burton this, hey, make this movie about a Batman. You can do whatever you want.
It was just a Tim Burton movie.
Yeah, it was like, okay,
with Batman.
I'll make. He found his angle, which was just making Batman like a weirdo, and you know, the Gothic architecture, the Gothic aesthetic, and he ran with it. And you know, it worked. And obviously there's other examples of it not working as well, them doing that kind of thing. But you know, it's just to me, it's just a shame that it seems like not in the near future we're not going to see that kind of thing anymore. A director's vision of a comic book movie like Ang Lee's Hulk, like Tim Burton's Batman.
Not from the MCU at least. There are. What was the X-Men movie? It wasn't X-Men. It was an X-Men spin-off movie where it was like a straight horror film. It was being pushed.
Which it's called New Mutants, right?
They postponed it later this year.
Right. I don't even know if that's coming out.
No, it is.
This
is like an actual release date.
Oh,
I don't remember what it was.
Good.
Yeah.
I hope they still make it
But seeing the trailers for that's just a straight up horror movie that happened again.
Right. Which the X-Men movies have they've usually, at least lately, they've been a little more daring with their products, because Deadpool was pretty daring. Like, people forget that in 2016 it was kind of like a strange thing to release an R-rated, a big kind of, at least decently budgeted superhero film, and they did it, and they proved that they could do it. They took a chance and they did it, and I respect that. Now people are doing R-rated superhero movies again, and yeah, and now they're like you said, the New Mutants thing, which I still, I don't know for sure if it's going to come out. You said there's a release date, and yeah, that's good, because I was afraid that Fox Disney merger, which I guess now is completely finalized, and we're one step closer to living in Blade Runner worlds. Where there's like, you're like in a city and it's like nice and dark, everything's raining, there's like a big Mickey Mouse hologram talking directly to you. That's gonna be the world in about 10 years. That's my prediction. What do you think?
I feel like 10 years is being generous.
Yeah, let's say gentlemen's 5 years.
In about 5 years, everything will be owned by like Walmart, Amazon, or Disney.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, life will probably be a lot more simplified, but
it's true. We probably will never have to leave our homes ever again. We can just get McDonald's just pumped directly into our bloodstream by the Uber Eats people, and
Amazon Eats.
Amazon. That's right. Amazon will buy Uber in the next 2 years, and yeah, it's so fun living in a dystopia. But
we digress.
But yes, we digress. But I would say, okay, back to Spider-Verse. I think this movie does give me hope that there is a possibility that you could have kind of like these daring creative visions with superhero films, kind of go back to the fold. This film was not like the most successful, financially successful film of the last year. However, it was at least decently financially successful. It lasted a long time. It did well. And it won an Oscar, which I was actually kind of surprised about. And I'm pleasantly surprised about, and so that I think bodes well. It was critically well received. Audiences liked it. I think that if Hollywood was to hopefully just this once learn the right lesson, then we could possibly see these weird and aesthetically different and even maybe script-wise pretty different products and on the horizon. We'll see. Crossing the fingers.
Okay, so the issue with that, my counterpoint to that, is that's best case scenario.
That is best case scenario.
Worst case scenario, and this is something that's happened, we watch it happen, is when these people find another concept that works, rather than look at that and say, well, people want innovation, people want new things, they'll look at it and say, well, we should just do this another 6 times. Which is what happened with Guardians, because the Taika Waititi movie, very distinctly his, but still just very, it relied on that sort of Guardians aesthetic.
It's very Guardians.
They've announced already sequels and spin-offs of Spider-Verse, and I feel like they're not going to put the effort in differentiating it.
Right.
They're going to take the formula and they're going to milk it and they're going to keep diluting it, and then eventually in half a decade
they'll probably like copy the worst things too. Like they'll just maybe they'll think that people want movies about like in like different universes. Maybe we'll see like a fucking Batman movie where he's teaming up with Batman Beyond and
Adam West Batman
and Dark Knight Returns Batman. That
Ben Affleck Batman. Kills them all.
Yeah. That's probably what happened. And yeah, I just don't know what's gonna happen. And Hollywood, like you said, like we both said, is like they are notoriously bad at learning lessons, and they're notoriously good at fucking making a good thing bad by repetition. Because you're right, that is what happened with Guardians. You mentioned Thor Ragnarok, although I think that's a good example of a Guardians-esque film. It
was a good movie.
Yeah.
You're right. But how long can you do that?
Exactly.
Because Suicide Squad was that. But horrible.
Exactly.
Like, they learned all the wrong lessons.
A horribly messy version of that, because they clearly, like, when they were filming it, wasn't that at all. And then with the various like recuts and reshoots that they did, and like the recuts by that trailer company and stuff, they just tried to do it like post-production almost, which made it such an awkward experience and made it such a tonal mess, just like many of the other DC films after that as well, like Justice League too. So yeah, and we'll see what happens. Like I said, I really hope this is like a good sign for things to come. And get Lord and Miller on just a bunch of projects. That's what I think, because to me, they have not really had a real failure yet. To me, they've had nothing but successes working off of ideas that seem like, on paper, to be the worst ideas of all time. But they managed to turn shit into gold. And that's basically what they did with Spider-Man and the Spider-Verse, because you think that a movie like this would be completely, I don't know, like it would be too much happening, right? Because we have the stuff with the Kingpin, we have we have Miles Morales, we have introducing him, we have introducing these other various characters. Like there's a lot going on, but they managed to perfectly balance it somehow. Like the other thing is the script, because the script I think works on many levels. There's a lot of surprises. There's a lot of good jokes. It's funny, and it's not funny in the same way an MCU movie is, because those movies are just banter. To me, there's a lot of good.
There's visual humor in this.
Exactly. There's
jokes.
Visual humor. There's humor that's basically just
slapstick.
Yeah, there's slapstick. There's like playing with your expectations a lot. There's
my favorite is it's just a background thing. Like, it really shows the detail they put into it. Is in one of the scenes where it's, like, a shot of the whole city. There are some posters in the background advertising, like, alternate universe films.
Yeah, a lot of cool references.
Them, from Dust Till Shaun.
Which is a great title for
Mr.
Shaun the Dead
Tomato Head, like, a Red Man group. And that's just, like, background. Like, you're not even supposed to see that.
They had Clone College, which was a tip of the hat to all the Clone High fans. Lord and Miller's first work. It's a lot of good stuff like that. This is bound to satisfy comic book fans at the very least, because the amount of references to Spider-Man lore specifically is quite.
Oh, the Stinger's great.
The Stinger's pretty amazing. Referencing not only yet another Spider-Man, another fan favorite, the Miguel O'Hara 2099 Spider-Man. But then it's also a reference to a funny meme that people like,
the pointy Spider-Man meme.
Yeah, the pointing Spider-Man meme, the famous meme. So this is really and God, there's so many other references too, because there's a lot of references to the Raimi films. The very first 5 minutes references Spider-Man 3 and
the dance scene.
Yeah, the dance scene in Spider-Man 3. A lot of cheeky references there. And it's never too much. It's never too cloying with its references either. Yeah. And it's a little fan servicey, but
they're not hitting on the head with it.
Yeah, they're not hitting you on the head.
That's not the main point.
They're very tasteful.
That's not the meat and potatoes.
Exactly.
That's like the accoutrement.
It's the accoutrement, and the meat and potatoes is the visuals. It's the story, because to me there's a lot of satisfying emotional beats as well. You buy Miles' arc. They changed his arc a bit from the comics, the original Bendis Ultimate Spider-Man run. They made his uncle more of a sympathetic character, which I think was a terrific decision, because his relationship with Miles Morales is which once again shouldn't work, because there's so little of it there, but they just managed to hit the right points. They managed to hit all the right points. The actors do well. It's Mahershala. How do you pronounce his name? Mahershala Ali.
I'm not gonna try. Yeah.
Yeah. Forgive me for probably mispronouncing that. As the Prowler and
Uncle Aaron. Yeah.
And let me just say one thing about the Prowler is that, like, every time he's on screen, it's very tense. The way he moves is so, like, animal-like.
Yeah.
It's so methodical. It's so fucking cool. And, like, the music, whenever he's there, it's like this screeching music. It's good. It's good, man. What a good villain theme. And yeah, like everything works. I don't know what to tell you. Like, it's all so good.
They do a really good job also, sort of tying his death in, and how that's a big part of Miles' arc, because they make sure to point out that every person, all these alternate Spider-Mans have that big driving thing, which was the death of a family member, whether it was like Uncle Ben or Penny Parker's, like, what was it, father, Spider-Gwen's best friend, alternate Peter Parker,
right?
So that plays a big part.
The main message of this film is that all these people, very different, as different as they are all united by the tragedy in their lives, and are also all united by the idea that they're able to work through it and become something better than themselves. And it tells you, the audience, that you can do the same, and that what makes you unique is also what makes you your own version of Spider-Man, as long as you stand up for what's right and turn your tragedy into triumph.
Yeah, don't do what,
although it also helps to be bitten by a radioactive spider, which has not happened to me. Although as a kid, whenever I did pray, when I was in Catholic school, I not every time I prayed, but a few times I slipped in, hey God, if you send me one of those radioactive spiders, I'd owe you a big one.
Right, so you could do that, or you could do what the Kingpin tried to do in this movie, and build a machine that will, rip the universe apart molecularly and infuse them together to bring back your dead family.
And the Kingpin being the big bad of this film, to me, it's interesting, because there's a lot of versions of the Kingpin now. But I like Liev Schreiber's take on him. He's
doing like
he's the
parody,
Tony Soprano Kingpin. And I do like that his motivation is just, like everything else, it's just good enough. Maybe it's a little undercooked, but it's there. And to me, it's interesting that it's kind of
heavy though.
It's heavy. It's heavy.
His actions results in the death of his loved one.
Absolutely, it's a little sympathetic in some ways. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And I do
it makes sense you would blame Spider-Man for that, too.
Right. And it's to me, it's kind of interesting that the Kingpin's his motives in the movie are pretty much the same as his motives in the Daredevil show, the Vincent D'Onofrio Kingpin. Because in that show, if you remember, he's pretty much completely propelled by Vanessa. And in this film, he's still on that shit, but also is a kid too. There's a lot of God. How would you rank the Kingpins? We got Liev Schreiber Kingpin. We got Vincent D'Onofrio Kingpin from the Daredevil show. We got Michael Clark Duncan Kingpin from the amazing Daredevil movie.
Honestly, it's probably in that order.
You think so?
Yeah.
When was the last time you saw Daredevil, though?
It's been so long. I don't remember anything about Michael Clark Duncan's
I own the director's cut. Give it a watch sometime.
Absolutely.
We can give it a watch. We can we can have a good time. Have a good chortle.
My favorite thing about the Spider-Man Kingpin is that while he does that sort of Tony Soprano sort of it's cartoony.
It's a little cartoony.
But also they put his very goofy mammoth characters onto use because very early on in the film he like hammer fists Spider-Man and straight up fucking murders him.
Miles
like,
Morales
in cold blood.
His universe's version of Peter Parker is murdered by Kingpin's bare hands, and then, with his fists.
Yeah, later on in the movie, he just he guns down Prowler,
Yeah.
Associate of his, and then does not crack a joke.
No,
which I think is important because if it was an MCU film, he would have
It's
immediately
true.
made a joke at the moment.
The MCU people, they're very like they're not usually very good at like containing themselves when it comes to letting dramatic moments sit.
In Ragnarok, where the fucking what is that place called?
It's Asgard.
Yeah, it's fucking destroyed, and then immediately like the big rock creature is like cracking jokes.
Yes, Taika Waititi's the rock creature. He is cracking jokes, and this should be like by all accounts that should be a very dramatic moment. It's Thor's homeworld, which we've seen in like 2 other movies, be completely ravished, and him and his people are now a people without
nomads.
home.
Yeah,
exactly,
refugees.
and it's just played off as a joke. And like, I don't want comic book movies to be fucking like joyless. I don't want it to be Batman v Superman, which is a completely joyless film, a completely drab experience, full of misery and murder and like terrorism and stuff, and it's bad. It's miserable. But there's a balance I think that can be maintained because comic books they can be pretty heavy when they want to be.
Most origin stories are incredibly heavy.
Yeah, they usually involve the death of 1 or 2 or many family members.
Families,
yeah. That's the other thing. Like comic books, they aren't unlike the MCU. Like the comic books that the MCU are based on are usually I know that like usually everything is reset at some point, and that's a big problem with the comic book industry, in my opinion. Is like their failure to commit to any of their changes, but they are still better about putting their characters in stressful situations where you see them challenged, and for at least a little while they're changed. For instance, Civil War, the Mark Millar comic book. Say what you will about it, at the end. You have the very non-conventional ending of Captain America kind of realizing that he's in the wrong and turning himself in before being killed. But yeah, and that's something that it definitely leaves a change in the universe for a very long time, and you don't really see that in the movie version of Civil War as much. Like you see, like him and Iron Man hate each other, but that they're just gonna work together again in Endgame. Like, there's not gonna be much of a ripple from that. Like the biggest consequence from Captain America being a refugee from the law is that he was not immediately in Infinity War. He was just kind of not there for like a second, but then he was there as if nothing.
And nothing changed. He just had a beard.
He just had a beard, which is awesome, and he was looking like a snack. But besides that, not a whole lot. You don't really get a sense of his struggle, like his because now he's also kind of a man without a home. He was rejected by his government, and you could focus in on this kind of stuff, this kind of very human drama.
He's literally Captain America.
He's Captain America,
like that's his thing.
Exactly,
and America has shunned him.
Exactly, America shunned him, and he
doesn't seem to mind that much.
He doesn't seem to mind, and in Winter Soldier, you kind of have him like questioning like the ideals of the government that he is technically working for, and that's good, and I like that. However, once you figure out that the government is like secretly run by Nazis, then it's like all like that kind of moral conundrum is diminished, because you're like, well, what's there to worry about now? You're just fighting Nazis. Then to me, and to most people, a few not included, fighting Nazis, there's not much of a moral quandary there. Like, it's just something you do.
It's an obligation.
And yeah, it's like an obligation as an American and as a human being with a soul, in my opinion. But yeah, no, and to me, whoa, where was I?
Oh, the lack of stakes in MCU films.
Yeah, in MCU films.
Compared to regular comics.
Right. Compared to regular comics, and compared to some of the other films. Like Spider-Man, you definitely feel the drama more. You feel it's just, yeah, as an experience, it's very different. And I feel like I can only hope that the MCU kind of, gets some inspiration from it. We'll see what happens. Maybe they'll get inspiration from Venom instead, since that was the more financially successful.
I fucking love Venom. We'll have to do Venom one day. That was great. So
Venom is fun. It's a stupid movie for stupid people.
Here's my stance now. On
like myself,
MCU.
for instance. I'm not insulting anyone that liked the movie Venom. I like the movie Venom too.
The thing is, I will no longer go. I've sworn off the MCU at least 3 times. So, but after Avengers Endgame, because I'm so invested, I'm not gonna go see the sort of standard par for the course movies.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult for me to even imagine where they're gonna go after Endgame,
because they're not gonna be fun. I know what I'm getting into. I'm only gonna go see the movies with the potential to be horrible, because at least it's a new experience.
Yeah.
Venom, for example, was an absolute shit show, and I loved it.
It was a shit show.
It was incredible. It was essentially like a buddy cop LGBT movie. It was incredible. Tom Hardy is just hamming it up.
He got the goop. It's a movie. It's Venom. We'll talk about Venom for a second. Venom is a movie that is anti-technocrat. The villain is basically Elon Musk. Make no mistakes. And B is pro polyamory. You have the Lady Venom making out with Tom Hardy, and there's really not much more you can read in that.
No.
It's that
hot.
It's just a sexy hot scene.
Ooh,
You don't see that kind of you won't get that kind of steamy steamy romance in an MCU film, that's for sure. And I appreciate that. It's not. I wouldn't even say that Venom is taking risks, but it was just, I guess, different enough.
It was early 2000s.
It did. I've had a lot of people seem to agree with that. Yeah, is that it felt like a movie at a time. Like this movie could have easily came out around like when Daredevil was being released. Like it's definitely of that mold. It seems like to completely ignore all the many strides comic book films have made since then.
For the better, I think.
Yeah. I mean, for the most part, yeah, it was definitely different.
It was a nice break from the monotony.
It was a nice break. And to me, and let me just clear something up. I'm in slight disagreement with you with the MCU films. I probably would. I'm a fucking tool and a shill, and I will probably watch them even as they become more monotonous. Just because, to me, they're like a guaranteed good time at the theater. Like, and I've never been like agitated. I've never been angry while watching. I've usually had a few chuckles and a few thrills, and that's fine. To me criticizing them so heavily is more like I want you to do better. I know you can do better. There's so much talent in front of the camera, behind the camera. At the very least, like make your movies look distinct from one another. Don't have it like look like a fucking like some of these movies are like some like Civil War and whatnot and Homecoming too. Like their looks are like that of a TV show. Like they are not putting much work into the aesthetics. And even in their earlier films, like they were shot with more cinematic quality, like the earlier MCU films. It just seems like that's kind of gone now. Like they're just kind of they're getting comfortable. They're getting too comfortable.
Yeah, there's a uniformity to all of these.
It's a uniformity, and they're getting too comfortable. And with the occasional like weird outliers, like Guardians or like Thor Ragnarok, which is just Guardians again, but a little more Taika Waititi esque. And yeah, I think they definitely have the potential to be better. And hell, even I would say that even like some of the DC movies, they don't. Almost none of them work. Like the new DC films. But you can't really argue that like these, except for maybe Suicide Squad, which was like such a mess that you can't really find any vision anywhere. But you can't argue that like Man of Steel or Batman v Superman aren't like Zack Snyder movies. Like these are not movies that are trying to imitate the style of Marvel. They're completely miserable, and the
bleak.
It has the fetishized violence and weird masculine tendencies of Zack Snyder films. It's all there. There's Zack Snyder films through and through. And like I said, Suicide Squad is a fucking mess, so we'll just ignore that. But Wonder Woman, to me, very, like, they clearly were putting... The vision was very clear with that film, and Like, I didn't see much in the way of studio tampering there. I would say that even Aquaman, which I saw and enjoyed, as bad as the story was, as obvious as it was, the way it was told was a little more interesting. Like, look-wise, it was very interesting. Cinematography-wise, they really let Juan do his thing. He's a very kinetic director, and it was filmed very in his definite style. And you could definitely pick it out of a lineup, especially compared to some of the MCU films. That being said, yeah, I'll be watching Endgame, and yeah. All 3 hours, I'll be watching.
Yeah, let's pray for an intermission there.
I want an intermission.
Jesus.
It's gonna.
The way these MCU films are going, it's gonna be like 2022, and there'll be like 4-hour films, and like not even like the main Avenger films, like the side films. It'll be like a West Coast Avengers movie with no bearing on it. It'll be like Ant-Man, but it'll be 4 hours long, and that's the warm up to the Avengers movies, which will be 6 hours, no intermission. It'll be great. That's the future we're speeding toward now.
That's the future of cinema, my friend. Yeah, you gotta love
time's
it.
a flat circle because we're in all the epics, like early cinema, like 3 hours long.
It's true.
We're working our way back.
It's true. We're gonna have a Marvel movie that's as long as Once Upon a Time in America, a 3-hour and 49-minute film, and it's gonna be about fucking Squirrel Girl. It's gonna be great. I can't wait. Anyway, I think that's really all I had to say about Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. I mean, I could probably talk about it a lot, but I would probably just be kind of hearkening back to points I've already made. It's wonderfully done, look-wise, script-wise. The characters are great. They're utilized in just the way they need to be. A lot of good lines. The story's good. It all works. Everything works. Oh, you know what? I did want to talk about one more thing. What did you think of the soundtrack?
Soundtrack was good.
I like it too, yeah.
Very modern, very fitting.
Yeah.
One thing, these movies are lacking. Most superhero movies now is they don't really use like pop songs. Like, it's just orchestral soundtracks.
Well, blockbusters and like even the older superhero films. Like I remember Spider-Man had its own original soundtrack. So did Fantastic Four and stuff. They had their own original soundtrack where they use like these pop songs or maybe
Saliva collaborating with Chad Kroeger.
Oh yeah, then they say that a hero would save us.
Or Daredevil with the Evanescence.
Oh god, the Daredevil soundtrack is low key, kind of iconic. Those Evanescence songs, they're still playing on the radio to this day. Like I still fucking hear them.
Oh, also to its credit, Black Panther also did a very good job.
Okay, yeah, so I think they might be coming back actually then, because we have Black Panther, which has its own modern soundtrack, and now we have Spider-Man again, but replacing like butt rock with like SoundCloud rappers, I guess.
SoundCloud rapper and Vince Staples.
Which is interesting.
Market improvement.
It's interesting, yeah. I will say this. I think one of my only complaints about the film is that occasionally the soundtrack was used to awkward effect. The way I would exemplify is like during a particularly emotional moment. Like I think it's when Peter Parker of Miles Morales' universe dies. Mm-hmm. They, you kind of sit on the moment for a while, for like a second, but then like a Lil Wayne song starts playing almost immediately, and it's like, oh well, like I'm kind of taken out of that moment a little bit. And I think there's like maybe one other moment like that, or maybe that was the only one, but that just sticks out to me. Like that, but if that's the only complaint I have, like that's pretty.
That's
pretty good.
Yeah.
That is a nitpick at most.
Solid.
Yeah, it's a solid movie, and I can't wait to watch it while under the influence of psychedelics one day.
So I have two very small points.
Yes,
not even points, just little anecdotes. One,
get them out, buddy.
Who you said Bendis?
Brian Michael Bendis
was the first. He debuted Miles Morales.
He did. Because. Go on.
Let's not read too deep into this.
I could go on for a while.
What do you think was running through his mind when he named Miles Morales' dad Jefferson Davis?
This is something I ask myself a lot because I didn't know because I was a big Ultimate Spider-Man fan back in the day, and I read it pretty much up to the Miles Morales thing, pretty much all of it. And I never really noticed that Miles' dad's name was named Jefferson Davis until the video game
of the Confederacy. For those of you at home not brushed up on your history,
Jefferson Davis is the president of the Confederacy, aka the country that people still have flags for, even though it has not existed for 300 years.
Did you not hear though? They're gonna rise again.
Well, that's right. I've heard that somewhere. I heard that somewhere. Hey, tell me when that happens.
Don't tread on them, brother.
I'll try not to. I don't want to tread on them.
This is they're gonna be just enlivened by their hero appearing in a mainstream film. Only be very disappointed when they find out he's a strong black male character.
Yeah, they're like, I don't even know how how this would happen. They're going through. Okay, so here's the scenario. We have a neo-Confederate looking through the IMDb of the new Spider-Man film. All right, let's say he's colorblind. He doesn't notice that the IMDb actors are pretty much exclusively African American for the main cast. And then he sees the name Jefferson Davis. Like,
Jefferson Davis?
Hey, Amelia, check this out. We got Jefferson Davis in this here Spider-Man film. We gotta watch it. And then they watch it, and it turns out it's a culturally diverse film about a Spider-Man that's both African American and Latino. And then they'll probably... I mean, I'm sure if you go deep into the review section of any movie website, you'll see somebody talking about white genocide.
You think the IMDb listing for a character with the last name Morales would have been a giveaway, but I guess...
Well, like I said, they were just so, excited about the Jefferson Davis spotting. I like to think this happened at least once somewhere in this weird, wonderful world. Speaking of people who made that exact argument, not white genocide specifically, but... Armand White, our good friend.
Friend of the
pod. Known troll, Armand White. His defense for who is a movie critic, by the way, folks, who is a big fan of the movie Jack and Jill, but hates basically every other critically acclaimed film.
The whole gimmick is that he's a contrarian who likes to ruin films' Rotten Tomato scores.
Yes, he does. And even if he says he's not, he is. I will give him this. His writing is decent enough to where you could almost buy that these are his opinions. But he must be a truly demented person if that's the case, because from what I understand, and I did read the review, his main criticism of this film appears to be that it's just pandering to social justice sensibilities by having an African American Latino main character.
It's worth noting that Armand White himself
is African American.
Yeah.
Yes.
Very odd.
Yeah, he's a real Uncle Ruckus type. And he absolutely loathes basically any film made by any kind of African American. He hates the movies of Steve McQueen. He hates the movies of Spike Lee. But like I said, he's a big fan of Adam Sandler, and he's a big fan of Michael Bay. So who can really question his taste after that?
Likes what he likes.
Armand White.
Unique set of sensibilities there.
Indeed, he's honest. No, well, maybe he's not. Well, who knows? Anyway,
all right, moving on to my second point.
Yes.
It seems at least once every episode we have to bring up some odd fetish or proclivity of mine.
Well, don't say we. You can say you.
That I have to force upon you and our poor listeners at home some odd...
should just rename this podcast Andrew Benbow's long list of fetishes, and also we talk about movies sometimes.
That's a little wordy.
It is.
Who's going to tune into that? I'm trying to suck them in. Anyway,
you're right,
last point here. Doc Ock in this movie.
Uh-huh.
Is
a lady.
Not your Alfred Molina.
No.
Doc Ock. No. Very, very different
not
from
a fat
comic
man
Doc
with a
Ock.
bowl cut.
No, it is Leather Mommy Doc Ock.
No, I loved the female Doc Ock.
Very good.
She was great. And it makes me wonder... Yeah, no, she's looking great. It makes me wonder because Aunt May is in this movie, and she says, "Oh no, it's Lynn," because I guess they have added. It makes me wonder that whether or not the storyline from the original comics where Doc Ock tries to marry Aunt May happens. That's a thing that happens. I don't know if you know this. It makes me wonder. Does that also happen in this universe?
There's a really good line where Peter finds out that the head scientist at the Kingpin's company is a woman, and he says, I guess I have to re-examine my own biases. So pretty good.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I that's something I quote a lot.
Another very good one-liner.
Because I usually have a lot of biases that come out very often.
Yeah, thank God you don't air them out on this podcast.
Oh, no.
We would have been canceled first episode.
Yeah, the internet police would have been on us like white on rice, which I feel like is a really racist thing to say because there's different colors of rice. Anyway, so that's my opinion about that. What do you think?
More of a brown rice guy myself. I agree.
I can't believe you just white genocided yourself with rice.
God, good riddance.
Oh boy. Anyway, that's that about wraps it up about Spider-Man, right?
Yeah, I'm about done there.
Yeah, that about that puts a nice little package. Now let's put that aside and let's move on to our second main subject of the day. It's a packed episode, folks. We're gonna talk about Weezer, and I'm gonna hand it off to Andrew. This is his music corner. I listened to the new album. He listened to the new album, but he also has a comprehensive history of their recent output. So if it interests you, or even if it doesn't, give it a listen.
Yeah, I put a lot of work into this.
Yeah,
guys.
yeah. He
I
really did. He really
to a lot
did.
of bad music for this,
which is, and that's a sacrifice not a lot of people are going to make.
Right. So, Weezer is a band.
For instance, me.
Yeah, it's true. You listen to like what 1.5 of these?
Yeah.
Oh God.
I've listened to, I think, 2 of these albums.
Let that show when the time comes and our schism occurs and we're fighting over the rights to the name of this podcast,
which is the name of a song that already exists, but let's not even go there.
We're not going to get into it. So it'll be like a 3-way lawsuit between Nick, myself, and Father John Misty. Remember who put the most effort in to bring you the quality content, who put in the legwork and wallowed through 4 albums of schlock.
Well,
it was me.
Some of it's schlock, but some of it is,
which I will get into.
Some of it is
Did you listen to the albums? Are you able to cast that judgment?
Absolutely.
No, it was me. I'm gonna begin.
Absolutely.
So Weezer, as a band,
to
has technically been in decline really their entire career, which sort of goes back to they made a really big mistake in that their debut in 1994
by
was,
it being so good. And
yeah,
one of the peak of their discography.
One of like the best.
That's the mistake.
And most influential albums of all time. They set the bar.
The Blue Album
so
fucks,
high.
guys. Ladies and gentlemen, the Blue Album fucks. Whoa.
Yeah, much like frontman Rivers, it does it in a very neurotic way.
No, I was about to say
everyone
unlike the frontman Rivers.
Oh no, Rivers lets you know he fucks. We're into that too. So
I like to pretend that he doesn't.
I think the most important thing to take into account when sort of critiquing this band is Rivers, their frontman, lead songwriter's sort of pathology.
Rivers Cuomo.
Yeah, and how it sort of affects their output. So Rivers is a guy who very neurotic, a lot of issues. Very neurotic, a very nebbish guy. Always seemed to be seeking validation, which he got through his music.
And I always noticed that this is constant. Like, almost throughout his entire career, he's responding to the haters through his music.
So this really affects, like, the albums Weezer puts out, you know, and he never really gave off any sort of rock star vibes or seemed larger than life.
He never really seemed interested in that,
right,
though.
Yeah. Well, no, he did. That's the issue.
Is
that people were sort of attracted to that sort of low-keyness, the sort of everyman thing. You know, he didn't have Green Day snotty attitude.
Yeah.
He didn't have, like, the raw energy and, like, machismo of, like, Soundgarden or sort of whatever je ne sais quoi sort of shamanesque mystique that Kurt Cobain had.
Yeah.
All he had was songwriting chops and just massive fucking riffs. Power pop riffs. Sing-along songs,
nerdy lyrics.
Exactly, you know, songs about playing D&D in his garage, or just being an odd, possessive boyfriend. And people flocked to Weezer because of that, because they saw that he sort of mirrored their odd, insecure way.
Yeah.
And they appreciated that, because you weren't getting that anywhere else.
Right.
And that's like the key to understanding this band's downfall, is in the past, you know, people flocked to Rivers naturally. But I don't think he understood that. I don't think he understood why people enjoyed him.
He's too willing to please.
Right.
You're right. I think you're right, because he did, like, his if Weezer has had one ambition throughout their entire career, except for maybe Pinkerton, it was to make pop-friendly music.
Yeah.
And he's always made giant leaps to do that, whether it be by collaborating with Lil Wayne or by making
this Toto cover.
Yeah,
he's
the Toto cover.
Like, they're pandering.
It's pandering.
And they're just clinging to sort of, you know, this acceptance within the pop community at large.
Yeah.
So like your top 40 is what he's been aiming for,
and he's made no bones about that. He's said that like in so many words.
Yeah, so I did a bit of a deep dive dating back to their 2014 album, Everything Will Be Right in the End, and I gave some cursory listens to the ones before that. It was Ratitude and Hurley, which arguably, up until the release of the Black Album, that was sort of their musical trough. But they found a way to...
what was the one before that? The one that is famously
Red
reviled?
No, Red was the one... I don't know.
No, the one that has Beverly Hills on it. The one that Rick Rubin produced.
I don't know. I don't remember. Yeah, that one was hated too. I wasn't going to go that far back,
That's true, yeah.
So
there's only so much time.
Yeah, starting with Ratitude, just a little bit of summary, did not do a full listen. The lead single, I think, was If You're Wondering If I Want You To, I Want You To, which was Weezer at their peak. It's really poppy, it's upbeat, and it's a jaunty tune. But it's still very Weezer. Yeah, it's sort of endearing and goofy.
Yeah.
Weezer says fucking chickadee at some point. I mean, Rivers, says chickadee. Never going to hear that from
Weezer.
any other band. Yeah, Mr. Weezer. But also on this album is that Lil Wayne collab that Nick referenced.
Previously, man, yeah.
Which was...
Wheezy and Weezer.
Yes, Wheezy and Weezer. But the thing was... oh my god, it was so terrible. Rivers sounds like he makes partying sound like such a fucking chore, to the extent that not even prime Lil Wayne can salvage this track.
Yeah, I never heard that track, by the way.
Oh, it was trash. And the album is just full of just the sort of synths, the really squelchy, very annoying synths that were prevalent in pop music at the time. And a couple of the other songs are solid, and there were little tidbits, you can still pick up their Weezer tracks,
right?
But they're very modern pop, or what was at the time modern pop, and that sort of stifles any sort of quality there. And the same thing sort of continues on to the next album. Pretty much the same exact thing. They plan to play up the nostalgia a little bit.
What's the name of the next album?
The next one was Hurley.
Oh right, yeah.
Where they sort of play up the nostalgia a little bit.
You know who liked that one?
Who?
Fantana, who coincidentally released his Weezer worst to best video.
I didn't watch that.
Yeah,
it was
I've only watched half of it, but yeah, it was 2 days ago when he released it, and that wasn't that was middle on the list. It wasn't even
Hurley?
Yeah.
What? Yeah,
which is
that
strange.
Shows how bad some of the other ones were.
Yeah.
And these two records sort of tie into my main thesis here, in that this band is just a quest for validation for Rivers, because the rest of the band was not really on board with the direction they were taking. There's an interview from 2010 where their guitarist Brian Bell said he had a conversation with Rivers about Ratitude, and he said, to put my mind at ease, that this is just one album out of the many more we're going to make in our career. And when I heard that, I said, okay, cool. That's a great way to think of it. We're just trying something. This is one record out of many more. And when I heard that, he was fine with it. But that was a bold-faced fucking lie, because they would repeat the same mistake over and over again.
Yeah.
But before they did that, 2014, they put out an actual good album. That was Everything Will Be Alright in the End.
I would say that 2014 is when it seems like Weezer is having a comeback, because they have this album, which I haven't listened to, but I know is decently well regarded, and they have the White Album, which is also decently well regarded, and I really like. I think it's a really good, solid album, and yeah, but that turned out to be a false start at best. Yeah. So go ahead.
Okay, so it's Return to Form. It brings back the big ass power pop riffs, and the solos, and just the really endearing cheesiness of the 90s output. They even worked with the producer of the first album, Rick something of the Cars, also produced the Blue Album. So
I didn't know that.
Yeah, but with that being said, it didn't feel like fan service.
Makes sense, though.
Yeah, because there were some actually new ideas. It's a Weezer pushing the old sound forward instead of sort of abandoning it. They had Justin Hawkins from The Darkness contributes to a song called Pat It Up to Here, which is very Darkness-esque. Weezer busts out this pseudo-operatic voice that is surprisingly good. And then there's
very different for them.
Yeah, there's a collaboration with Best Coast on a duet.
What happened to them? They haven't been doing much for a very long time.
No, I don't know.
I feel like Always overtook Best Coast, their sound, and made it better.
They did, absolutely.
Yeah, in my opinion. because very similar, like beach vibes and shit.
Yeah, which is really odd considering Always is like Canadian.
It is very odd. There's no beaches in Canada.
Well, I know Best Coast sort of like okay. So what happened to Best Coast was they got you know how when Austin Powers came out, people were like they can never make another spy movie because Austin Powers has like shown every trope. And well, something similar happened with Best Coast. There's a band, Childbirth. There's a band called Childbirth, a very good post-punk band that did their own sort of reduction of Best Coast songs. I think it's called like Boyfriend or something. And
isn't that the name of a Best Coast song? Boyfriend?
Probably.
Okay.
So it sort of reduced them down to their barest parts. And they could never put out a song again without proving sort of, I'm not going to call it a diss, without proving these people right. So they were sort of shamed out of existence, I like to think. But anyway...
back to Weezer.
Yeah, so even like the lyrics on this album are sort of typical Weezer fare, but you know, he again, there's some developments here, there's some storytelling tracks. He has a song about Paul Revere. There's another one
which is not always a good thing when it comes to Weezer.
It works here though.
Yeah. Because they not to jump ahead too quickly, but there is a little bit of attempts at storytelling on the Black album, and though it's nothing but a disaster.
Yeah, and then like the album ends on it's like a 3-track sort of prog rock suite that at some point just like flexes. There were fucking 5 concurrent like the guitar solos all going at once, and the whole record really shows that Rivers can still write a good song. He still knows what Weezer fan wants, and
he just refuses to give it to them.
He refuses to do it. Like he even states on one of the songs, "Back to the Shack," which I think was the first single. That the whole reason he put out those last 2 albums was because he was looking for a new audience. And I don't want to be cynical, but I think it's safe to say that the sort of return to the roots was just an attempt to like salvage his reputation and salvage sort of
which is
earn back his fan base. Yeah, which it fucking worked because this album was fantastic and it was critically acclaimed. And it's just.
But after this and the White Album, he just is back on his own shit. He's trying to appeal to the kids again.
Yeah.
But he's trying to do it through like the millennial pop sound rather than the pop punk sound or whatever it was.
Yeah. So that's what the White Album was. Is that they sort of.
Well, I think the White Album.
It's a lot. It takes sort of the essence, but it makes it really the emphasis on the pop.
It is. It's very poppy.
The riffs are gone, the solos are gone, but like the sort of pop punk is emphasized.
Yeah,
which makes sense. You know, he claims it's sort of Beach Boys influenced. The entire record is about like California. It's a very
lot of California songs. Yeah, a lot of sunny. Speaking of beach vibes, a lot of beach vibes, and which is something I always appreciate when done well. And some good songs on it. This one I have listened to, and I mostly like it. I think most of the songs on it are pretty good, pretty catchy.
Yeah.
And basically what Weezer does best.
So there were like, in my opinion, there were 3 very good songs on this album. So if you're gonna listen to 3, it's "Thank God for Girls," "California Kids," and "Endless Bummer," which is probably one of my favorite Weezer songs.
That's a good
period.
one.
And then sort of the other songs on this album are just sort of lesser versions of that. Not to say they're bad,
right?
But there's definitely a lot less diversity on this record than the last one.
I and this is so cliche for me, but I'm a big fan of the song "Do You Want to Get High" off of that album.
What does that song say to you?
Do you want to get high?
You know, it's actually about like prescription painkiller addiction.
Yeah, but it's
you're just like, I'm gonna toke a doobie subvert Bacharach.
Hey, buddy.
Totally missing the message.
Separate the chorus from the verses sometimes, you know?
Oh my gosh. All right, whatever. So this album, sort of really the only difference here, the only sort of shift away from typical Rivers fare is there's a much smaller emphasis on his own sort of idiosyncrasies, and it's more of like a general sort of societal approach to like love and pop culture.
Because there's a lot of old man. I mean, not a lot, but there's some like old man stuff creeping into that album. I remember there's like a song where he's like criticizing like I guess young California women for being fake or something. Some stuff that's like a lot. That's very kind of old man yells at Cloud-esque. So you see his age kind of creeping in a little bit too, which is fine because he is an old man, and frankly, he should stop acting like he's a child.
Yeah, he's like 49.
He's an old man.
It's absurd.
It's so absurd.
Okay. So the album after this, 2017. Yep, Pacific Daydream. So,
which was not. Yeah, that was
Pacific Daydream is. It's just, again, it's a diluted, poppier version of the White Album. So this is what Weezer does: is they see they were successful at some point, and much like the MCU. To tie it back, they take all the wrong lessons from it. They don't see
and Hollywood.
Why fans came back to them. They say so the band sort of failed to learn from history here and just became a fucking pop act again. You know, they removed any of the signs from their old style and just really embraced the slick and sterile production that was on like Hurley and Ratitude.
I would say it's taken even like to a different level though, and feel like. For the song Feels Like Summer, it's
an EDM track.
It's EDM. Yeah. And like they have some songs on this album that have the millennial whoops. All right, they're playing into every single cliche and trope that could possibly be played into in modern pop music.
Right. So really, I think the whole the summation.
And they're not doing it well.
Summation of really this whole deep dive is there's that phrase. The only difference between medicine and poison is a dose, and that's what
good. I like that.
How you.
Never heard that.
Yeah, that's Weezer and pop music. So Weezer with a moderate amount, you know, it's a nice high, a nice level-headed sort of.
Yeah.
But you know, this album is fucking pure black tar heroin right into your vein,
right into your fucking balls, dude.
Right.
And you're eventually your balls get too much heroin. And you gotta chop them off, buddy.
You just gotta.
They're dead.
You just gotta do it.
They're unusable.
And
it's over.
Like the worst thing about this record, right, is that it wasn't written like spontaneously. It wasn't like written as a band. So how it worked is Rivers kept like an archive of like song ideas, and you know he hired programmers to like organize a spreadsheet of
which
like
is
lyrics,
always a great sign when it comes to making art
of like lyric snippets and like beats per minute and like syllables and key. And then he would just like cut and paste songs,
which is why it sounds like such a soulless affair because it's
is. There's no spontaneity.
And to me, from what I've heard from this album, because I only heard it like basically half of it when it first came out, is it's so like tepid and like soulless, like I said.
Yeah.
And that like you saying that makes perfect sense. It adds up.
Yeah. His quote here: instead of trying to force myself to feel inspired, I can just go into the spreadsheet and search. I just try them out and see which ones work magically. So that's it. Like, he's not even trying anymore.
Please, if you're trying to make magic, do not use spreadsheets. It's bad form.
Right. And so that leads us into the newest, the Black Album. Which
another
is bad.
album, which I listened to through and through. Just for the show.
Yep.
You're welcome.
So, yeah. This is essentially just Maroon 5 songs, but with Rivers Cuomo singing on them. This is essentially, it's music you'd hear in like an Apple commercial.
It's something, here's the thing about the Black, I'm very confused about who it's supposed to appeal to, because it's like they're kind of hard, like it's not as like slick and modern as like the Feels Like Summer album. What's that song? What's that album called?
Pacific
Daydream. Yeah, it's not like they don't, because there's a little bit of that, but it's not so much that. They're trying a little bit to play back to some of the pop rock they were doing in the like kind of late 2000s, but even then it doesn't really. I don't know. It's just not. I don't know who they're trying to appeal to.
Right. So they're. The thing is, it's too poppy for the old fans.
Yes.
But it's still too Weezer. Rivers Cuomo is never going to appeal to like a teenage girl.
It just
like,
isn't.
He's never going to appeal to like top 40 audiences. No,
because that's the top 40 is not that the landscape has changed. He's been left behind, and he shouldn't try. Like it's just really embarrassing now at this point.
Right. So I think the best summation on this album comes from the album itself. It's from the song "I'm Just Being Honest," and the lyrics are: "Walk into the venue, you slip me your CD, ask me if I'd listen, give you my critique. I listened to it, but halfway through it, I had to quit. Your band sounds like shit."
Which I don't know if that's like a self-aware moment for him. I remember that. I was like, oh, is he being self-aware?
I read the rest of the lyrics. I don't think it is.
Probably isn't, honestly.
Yeah, there are only 2 listenable tracks. Not even like enjoyable, but listenable. listenable, and that's the first single, "Don't Knock the Hustle," which
Right.
is the only song with sort of like its own character, like its own energy.
Yeah, it's kind of, it feels very like 90s, like there's a little bit of like a Latin influence.
And
But it's fun. It's a fun song, and it's about, and the message is him kind of talking to the haters again, which is something that he does over and over again throughout his career.
Yeah.
But to me here, it's like the sentiment I can understand. Like, you know, yeah, you can't knock the hustle. They're working pretty hard. They're making albums. And they're pretty consistent,
but
all
they're
things
not.
considered.
They're pulling up spreadsheets. Like,
I mean, that is technically
anymore.
making an album,
Oy.
but it's not in the most creative fashion. But I mean, they are working, technically.
Right, and then the other listenable song here is called Byzantine. It's this
Right.
weird, like, 60s French pop sort of inspired
Right.
track.
I mentioned that it sounds like it could be a TV girl song, possibly.
Yeah,
And my problem with it, like, to me, it sounds different, and it's not like you know, it's not as like, it doesn't run together like so many of these other songs do. And it stands apart,
Which
and I
is-
think it almost could have worked if Rivers, unfortunately, just doesn't work on it.
Yeah, which is because it stands out because it was written by actually talented songwriter Laura Jane Grace.
Which
of
is an
Against Me.
interesting song for her to write. I never would have expected that, but yeah, she did it.
Right. So yeah, just skip this record. Like Rivers said, it was supposed to be like a dark record.
A dark? What?
Yeah, but it's monotonous, and
What is it?
the only
What
way
is it
it's
about
dark,
that's dark?
It puts you in a dark mood when you realize how much time you spent listening to it.
Some
You're
of
never
it's
gonna
so
get that time
like
back.
fucking saccharine. I can't imagine how he thought this was dark.
Yeah. So really, the only bright side isn't what this record is bombed. We're gonna get another throwback record to appease all the pissed off fans.
Yeah, that seems to be the trajectory here. It's yeah. Well, I mean, hopefully it's good. We'll see.
So that's that. We'll see you for an update in 2020 when we get another throwback record, like, I don't know, the Turquoise.
No,
Album?
Turquoise already happened, wasn't it? That
No,
the
it's
covers
blue.
album.
That was teal.
Oh, God, I'm bad with colors.
Yeah, full disclosure, I skipped the covers album.
A lot of
That's
songs
just-
were just really obvious. Like,
Yeah, I have no
you
interest in
mentioned
that.
Toto, Africa. That come on.
Yeah, it was just essentially like 80s meme songs.
Right, a lot of
Again, just pandering in the worst way.
yeah, but well, does that conclude your Weezer deep dive?
That's it.
I'm so happy you did this. You were very excited about doing this.
I was, you know what? It wasn't. I'm not gonna say it was a terrible experience because some of the stuff was actually enjoyable to listen to. Like, I had no idea that Everything Will Be Alright in the End album was good. Like, I skipped over that. I remembered how good the White Album was. I hadn't listened to that since it first came out. So that's like the most frustrating thing about this band is they can write
They're
good songs
all over the map.
but they don't. And again, it's just Rivers is a buffoon. He just aims to please
Total
and
buffoonery.
fails every which way.
Yeah. Well,
Here's to their third career resurgence.
yes, indeed. Now, speaking of career resurgences, did you have anything else you wanted to say before I plug our shit?
Plug away, Captain.
All right. Well, this was a Total Entertainment Forever. Did we ever introduce ourselves in the beginning?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, thank God. Okay. Yeah. So, anyway, listen to us on all your various podcasting aggregates. Follow us on social media. We got a Twitter. That's Total Pod Forever on Twitter. Follow us both on Instagram. For me, that's going to be McGetNoided. That's MCGETT_Noided. Andrew.
I am No Future Part 3.
And yeah, also like us on Facebook. All right. Like our posts, comment, subscribe.
Tell all your friends.
Tell all your friends, even if they don't want to hear it. Just tell
They'll
it.
think you're cool. They'll in about 2 years they'll be listening to our podcast and look back and be like, "Wow, I'm so thankful that so and so was kind enough to introduce me to these two lovely folks who have become such a pivotal point in my life."
Yes, that's
Who
pretty
else
much what we're
would
aiming
tell
for
me
here.
how to feel about things?
Yeah, there's no one else doing that on the internet.
Nope, no one doing it as well.
That's true. We're the only people. We're the only good people saying opinions
on the internet. Or in general. Okay. So
anyway,
before this gets any...
well, folks,
yeah.
We had fun. I hope you did too. You have a nice night.
We'll catch y'all next week.
Bye-bye.